Have you ever asked yourself, when is the right time to cash out? When's the right time to sell my cryptocurrencies? Let's discuss that on today's episode of Freshly Minted. Before we begin today's episode, I just want to let you know about our 100 XRP giveaway. At the end of the episode, we are going to ask a multiple choice question. It's going to be super easy to participate. Just answer that multiple choice question with your XRP public address in the comment, and you'll be one of 10 people to win 10 XRP. So without further ado, let's get on with the episode. Hi, I'm Brian Dement, and welcome back to another episode of Freshly Minted. You're going to have to pardon me for my cold today, as if I'm not nasally enough. There's about 50% more nasally. But anyways, today's topic is, when is the appropriate time to cash out? When's the right time to sell your cryptocurrencies or your crypto assets? Maybe you've asked yourself that before. Maybe you haven't. It's a good question to ask. It's a good question to ponder. I'm sure for any of you guys that have been in the community for any period of time, you've had that conversation pop up. I'm sure people have asked you, when are you going to sell? Or maybe you have a plan of when you're going to sell. But I think that the way to give an exact, precise answer on when is the appropriate time to sell depends on kind of where you're coming from. It depends on the principle by which you're investing. If you're a day trader, it's a completely different set of rules. If you're day trading or even long trading, not just, not making your trades every day, but making weekly or monthly trades with a certain profit margin kind of built into your trade, this isn't the episode for you. This episode is meant to discuss the fundamental investment in crypto assets. And for most of you guys, I believe that you would agree with me in terms of the fundamentals of cryptocurrencies. I think you would agree that cryptocurrencies and blockchain powered currencies are the future of fintech. That all money someday is probably going to be transferred, or the vast majority of money is going to be transferred via digital currencies. And so the exact answer, I'm going to give you the exact answer to that question of when to cash out. I'm going to give it to you right up front here. The answer is, you are already cashed out. You've already cashed out. And if you're kind of asking, what are you talking about? I'm already cashed out. You exchanged one currency, your fiat, for another currency, a cryptocurrency. It'd be the same thing as if you exchanged your US dollars for euros. You wouldn't ask, when do I need to cash out? If you moved to Europe, if you moved from the United States to Europe and you took your US dollars and you exchanged them into euros, you would never wonder, when do I cash out? You would say, I have the currency with which I need to live and subsist. To me, it's an interesting question. I see that come up all the time with, first of all, I hate the term bags for some reason, and it's probably going to ruffle some feathers. Talk about your portfolio. Talk about your holdings. Bags just sounds, it's like words like FUD, and actually I like HODL, but some of those words, it just sounds kind of immature. The crypto market's kind of immature because of these kind of nuanced little cliches that we come up with. Your holdings, a lot of times people are, when my holdings get to X amount of dollars, then I'm going to transfer out. It begs the question of, fundamentally, why did you invest in cryptocurrencies in the first place? My guess would be that you bought into cryptocurrencies because of its intrinsic currency qualities. You bought in because you recognize that cryptocurrencies, digital assets, whatever you want to call them, they have a lot of benefits over traditional fiat and even commodity currencies like gold or silver. You saw the benefits in them. You bought into your favorite cryptocurrencies because you saw intrinsic value over them. And if you didn't understand the fundamentals and you didn't understand the technologies, that's okay. You stumbled into something that's really good. You stumbled into something that has truth and weight behind it. And so if you see such value in the cryptocurrencies that you bought into, it begs the question, why would you go back to the inferior technology? It'd be analogous to this example right here. If the world was on the horse and buggy system, and then cars started to become prevalent, but the roads weren't built for them yet. And, you know, the technology wasn't great. Cars were kind of fuel inefficient, and they were seen as dangerous by society. But you recognized that automobiles over time would be vastly superior to the horse and buggy system. And so you bought some stock in Ford. You bought some stock in an automobile manufacturer because you saw the upside or the future potential of that stock. Well, maybe you bought in for $1 a share. And then as cars became more widely adopted, your $1 per share became valued at $10 per share. Well, in this example, it would be like cashing out your $10 per share stock and taking those profits and putting them back into an investment in a horse and buggy company. Why would you go back and invest in the horse and buggy company? You already invested in the future tech. You already invested in the prevailing kind of technology that's coming about, and you're cashing out. You're turning a profit. Yes. So I guess you could say you won, but in the long term, you're making a really foolish move. You're going back to what's comfortable. And people that win over the long period of time, especially when new technologies emerge, it's people that are okay with being in an uncomfortable state for an extended period of time. They like to have that moment of cashing out because there's finality to it, and there's a finish line. You can say, I won, I did it. But when you never cash out, when you just start to buy things with your Bitcoin, or when you start to buy things with your XRP, there's not that aha moment. It just kind of evolves slowly. It just kind of creeps and takes over. And so it's not quite as satisfying. And I get that. But learn to live in the discomfort of the long position. Because the person that is willing to take the long position, if you bought one Bitcoin, yeah, you could have cashed out a few years later and maybe tripled or quadrupled your investment. And then you put that back into traditional fiat. Well, what happens when that traditional fiat does what it always does? Inflation. It has inflation, let alone with our national debt, we could potentially see hyperinflation. So you could be going from Ford Motor Cars, the superior technology, to investing in the horse and buggy company that's going out of business. Because you cashed out and you got to have that satisfying moment of, oh, I 10x'd my money, I 100x my money, or 1000x my money. Yeah, it's a satisfying moment, but in the end, you lose. The people that are going to win in cryptocurrencies are the people that are long, and not just long, not just medium long, that are long. The people that plan to use Bitcoin or XRP or whatever their asset of choice is. The people that have decided in their mind, I'm going to eventually buy things with this. I'm going to buy a car. I'm not going to cash out to buy a car. I'm going to buy a car directly with my Bitcoin. I'm going to buy a house directly with my crypto assets. I'm sure you've seen this, but anyways, let's revisit it. So let's say that you bought Bitcoin back in 2012. You can see that over time, if you were to cash that Bitcoin out, it would eventually buy you more and more stuff, right? If you cashed it out into fiat in 2012, it would buy you a bag of lettuce. If you were to cash that Bitcoin out in 2013, it would buy you basically a shopping cart full of groceries. By 2014, it would buy you maybe several weeks worth of groceries. And then by 2020, it would buy you Ukraine. That's a pretty funny infographic. But the point here, I think, is a very resounding point. I mean, it's making this just crystal clear from my perspective and what we're talking about today. When you bought Bitcoin back in 2012, you didn't buy it so that you could hold on to it and cash it out a year later into fiat and buy 10 times more groceries. You didn't do that. When you bought into it in 2012, when nobody else saw value in it, you bought into it because you understood what you were looking at. You understood that you were looking at a decentralized digital currency that had an immutable record, that no government could ever shut down, that was private, that was a trustless network, and it had all sorts of amazing functions that had never existed in the history of money before. That's what you were buying into. I'm sure, yes, there were speculators out there, and maybe there's some speculators tuning in today. But here's my point. Don't be a speculator. Understand the fundamentals and tag along for the ride. If you bought Bitcoin back in 2012 and you saw what the fundamentals were, you would be foolish to cash it out a year later and to buy some groceries with it. Or you'd be foolish to even hold on to it from 2012 until 2014 and buy 40 or 50 times more groceries with it. That would be a foolish investment, because if what you originally bought into it for were the fundamentals, and if you knew that someday it would become so valuable that you'd be able to buy Ukraine, and obviously this is hyperbolic, we're speaking just in kind of crazy terms right now, but if you knew it was going to become so valuable that one Bitcoin was going to go from buying you, it was going to have the value of a bag of lettuce to the value of a country, you would be absolutely foolish for cashing it out. And here's the kicker. Here's the kicker, because all along the way in 2012, 2013, 2014, you would have had to cash your Bitcoin out for fiat in order to buy those groceries. But here's the thing. One day, when Bitcoin becomes so valuable that you're going to be able to buy the state of Ukraine, when you're going to be able to buy something that's very, very expensive in terms of fiat, you will not have to cash it out. That Bitcoin will have universal prevalence in the marketplace. It will be accepted at every end of the world. It would be like if you were to cash out in 2014 or in 2018, halfway on the road to the maturity of what it's going to be, of what Bitcoin and what cryptocurrencies are going to be able to afford you. It would be like going on a 2-week cruise to the Bahamas, and after the first 7 days saying, you know what, I know there's a lot more good times ahead, and I understand that this cruise, to get the full enjoyment and experience out of this cruise, I should stick around for 2 weeks. But you know what? I'm too impatient. I want to get home. I want to be done. I had some enjoyment. I got some good out of it, but I want to go home now. You would be a fool. You would have not been able to partake in everything that was supposed to be afforded to you. And so it's really important to understand the long-term value of what you hold. If you believe in the fundamentals, then whatever value it's at today is not going to be the value that it's at tomorrow. When I say tomorrow, I mean the distant tomorrow, the long term. Is what you believe in, is the reason you bought into Bitcoin, was it to make a quick buck? If it was, then feel free to sell at any time. But if you're a believer in the fundamentals, don't ever cash out. Buy Ukraine with it. Look at an asset like XRP. XRP, a lot of you guys that are long on XRP, and that XRP has a strong community, and rightfully so. XRP, they're the furthest along in terms of a real world adoption. I mean, they're actually being used in a real world use case right now on a smaller scale, actually a pretty large scale, but on a smaller scale compared to what their goal is. So Ripple's the company, XRP, the cryptocurrency, has a ton of upside. And now, if you're long on XRP, for example, if banks fully adopt XRP over the next several years, and I think if the adoption happens, it's going to happen rather quickly. But if over the next couple of years, banks worldwide accept XRP as a fully legitimized currency, they will they're basically, by doing that, they're giving their stamp of approval that this is an acceptable commodity or an acceptable utility token for transfer of value. So if banks accept it, it means that it has worldwide acceptance. If it has worldwide acceptance, it means that you, as the individual consumer, will have the ability to spend that XRP without cashing it out back into fiat. You will be able to spend it directly. So if banks have gone through the effort of legitimizing this currency for you, again, it begs the question, why would you go back to the old technology? Why would you go back and cash out? Because again, you have that satisfying moment, but why would you cash out? It'd be like going 5 steps forward and then like 6 steps back. Keep that in mind, that all these companies that are doing all the heavy lifting of legitimizing these commodities and these cryptocurrencies, they're doing you a huge favor. They're saving you the process that if you're wise, you won't have to cash out of them. If you're wise, and what you thought, why you originally got into cryptocurrencies is because you realized that they were the future of the exchange of value, then you'll be proven right. And you'll be able to spend that cryptocurrency just like you could spend a dollar bill or a euro or a yen today. And now lastly, let's look at this other this quote by Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett, it's funny that we quote him so often in the crypto sphere because he's against crypto. You know, he's one of the detractor. He's a crypto bear. I think that someday he's going to change his stance on it. I don't necessarily think he's ever going to become an investor in cryptocurrencies because he hasn't really shown a desire to invest in tech companies in general. He likes to invest in railroads and, you know, soap companies. I don't know, whatever is the most boring thing, blue chip thing you can find. He really likes to invest in stable things. And so I don't think he'll invest in tech, especially in cryptocurrencies. But anyways, the principle that he talks about here, it proves the point that I'm trying to make today. He says that investors would be better off, and again, he's talking about stock investors, but the principle holds true. He says investors would be better off if they treated stocks as what they are, pieces of company, instead of pieces of paper that go up and down in value. He preaches this all the time. He says that most investors have very little, like there's really little connection in their minds to what they're actually buying. They buy into things because of hype. They might buy into Facebook not because Facebook's created some new feature or they've projected higher profits for the next quarter or anything like that. People might invest in Facebook because they have a lot of good publicity at the time. Well, publicity doesn't always translate into profitability. Sometimes publicity just translates into hype. He buys into companies because of what's on their balance sheets. He invest into companies based on what's on their profit and loss statements. And he says that investors in companies should look at stocks as what they are, an ownership piece of that company. Now we extrapolate that principle to blockchain. I know many of us in the blockchain industry, we get caught up in hype as well. It's hard not to get caught up in hype. You know, what's the newest, best blockchain out there? What's going to be the next Bitcoin? Whatever. It's important to be grounded in the fundamentals of what you are invested in. If you're treating your crypto assets as pieces of code that will go up and down in value, and you're just trying to play a timing game of when's the best time to sell this, when's the best time to cash out, you're not truly grasping what it is that you're holding. You're playing a game, you're gambling. But if you hold that cryptocurrency and realize that I'm holding a digital asset that as time goes on, it's going to serve a better and bigger purpose. And as time goes on, it's going to become more and more valuable. It's going to be able to do more and more things because more and more people are going to seek it. More and more people are going to accept it. Then I think you've grasped the concept of what you've bought into. If you bought into Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies because of the fact that they're a better form of money, then congratulations. Kudos to you. You had the foresight to get on board with something before the rest of humanity understood what it was. Don't think in terms of, if I were to cash this out right now, how much fiat currency would I have? Again, it would be like saying, I bought this really cheap stock in Ford Motor Companies. It's increased tenfold. So I'm going to cash it out because I can buy a lot more stock in the horse and buggy company now. That's a foolish mindset. And so don't fall victim to the mindset of the masses. You're an early adopter in a revolutionary technology. The people that capitalize the greatest off of these points of history are the ones that have patience. Have patience. Settle in. Enjoy the ride. And that's going to do it all for this episode of Freshly Minted. Thank you for putting up with my extra nasally voice today. But before we go, I do want to ask the question for our 100 XRP giveaway. I want to know, which cryptocurrency of the top 4 are you most bullish on and you think is going to have the most adoption in 2019? Now, I'm going to give you the top 4 because out of the top 4, I want to know, I don't want to know about some random altcoin. I want to know about the top ones, the people that are at the top, the coins that are at the top. Which one do you think is going to get most adopted, real world use case in 2019? Bitcoin, XRP, Ethereum, or Bitcoin Cash? Anyways, the top 4 is the top 4. What are you going to do? Comment in the comment, or give me your answer with the comment in the comments below. You can tell I'm kind of new at this. Give me your answer in the comments below with your XRP public address. And the first 10 people will win 10 XRP. Thank you. Again, this is another episode of Freshly Minted. Join us soon. Now, it's the end of the episode, but it's just the beginning of the crypto revolution.